when you kind of were talking about shifting like ambiances or spaces, and like I noticed a few of those where like the energy totally shifts, and all of a sudden it sounds like you're in a different hall or different space.
Yeah.
Which was awesome, and there's some badass riffs. Really cool, man.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this production. What went into it? I feel like the drums at the beginning were super challenging to mix.
Yeah. Well, this is the project of Sin Kieran. He's formerly the guitarist of Ministry, and this is his new band. We've been working on these songs for the past year and a half, almost 2 years now, and so this is his new project, and it features another friend of mine. His name's Pedro Sanchez. He's in another band from LA called Trans Torno, but they came together for this. I had worked on Pedro's previous album with Trans Torno, and Sin needed a vocalist for his new project, and they ended up gelling together really well. So they're working together on this project. So we decided he put out the first single back in March, I believe. And this is the second single with a video that just came out a couple of days ago. And it's compared to the first single. The first single is a little bit slower. It's a little bit doomier. This one is more kind of obviously it's more up tempo, more mechanical. Has that driving riff, and that's in drop C. So it has a lot of constant riffage. So it's technically challenging because it's just like it requires a lot of endurance. But yeah, Sin wrote all the music, and Pedro wrote the lyrics and recorded the vocals. So we recorded everything here. Those are actually programmed drums. So yeah, the mixing was, see, what happens is when you work with great musicians and everyone's on the same page, and that's exactly what happened with this project, like, because Sin and I, we really get each other, like, as artists, musically, like we have very similar guitar techniques. So when we came together to write this song, especially, like, it just clicked. And what happens is when you're recording with someone like that, like, he's been playing guitar for so long, and he's like one of the best rhythm guitarists in the world, in my opinion.
Wow.
So we just gelled really well, and all the tracks when we recorded, since I was able to have control over production, it just came together really well. So the mixing, it wasn't necessarily super difficult because I did my best to make sure everything going in tracking wise was the best it could be. So the guitars we tracked here, I believe I used my Laney VH100R head into I believe I used my Mesa cab, and the bass on there is just DI, but that's with Dark Glass, the Neural DSP Dark Glass plugin, and Sin track bass for that as well. And I mean, the production came together really, really, really quickly, and I added a bunch. Like, if you listen later in the song, there's like a French horn section that comes in, and I used Majestica. It's this like really in-depth orchestral VST through Contact. And so yeah, I just went crazy on the layers of horns, and there's also some like church bells in there. And yeah, I just wanted to make it larger than life, like super cinematic, like almost horror movie. Like towards the end, like it just builds, and like, yeah, when those horns come in, it just for me, every time, like, when I watched the video for the first time, like the section when those horns come in and the way that the video is edited, it just kind of like, it gives you chills every time, because it's just like really intense, and like there's a lot of emotion that comes in at the end with those horns. But I'll send you the link to the video if you want to check it out.
Yeah,
later,
I saw a clip of it on Instagram, but I'll check out the whole thing now that you've told me about
cool.
the symphonic element at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, but man, it wasn't super challenging mix wise, like I said, because we just took the time with the raw tracks. So I just I brought it up, I enhanced where I could, brought it up to level, just made sure everything was balanced pretty well. And I don't know if other people you spoke with who do rock and metal mentioned this before, but I like to do a lot of serial clipping. So on like kicks, snares, I'll do on the kick and the snare, the drum bus, and a little bit on the mix bus. But just like to do a series of light clipping so that once it reaches the mix and master bus, like it's more perceived loudness, and it's not necessarily like what I don't like about. I kind of shifted from doing serial limiting to serial clipping, because with limiting on individual instruments, like I'll do it on vocals, but I've noticed that I'm liking the sound of clipping a lot better on drums, especially. So I won't limit drums anymore, but I do clip them. And then vocals, I'll limit maybe a little bit on individual tracks, but it just seems to gradually build up so that once it hits the mix bus, and like I'm tapping my SSL comp a little bit, once it hits that, it's already like pretty slamming and loud, and it has that impact and intensity. And then once I get to the mastering chain, I don't need to do a lot of limiting. So what I find is when the mastering chain, I like to do one stage of clipping, just subtle clipping. Then I'll bring it into the Slate FGX, which is also a clipper, but I'll just do a little bit of clipping on that. And then I have my final limiter, but I'm not really pushing the input. Like I don't ever like really go past 1 dB of input gain on my limiter, because I don't like the limiter to go past -1 of gain reduction. So, and a lot of people when they do the mastering, they'll like to use their final limiter kind of aggressively.
Bring up the volume.
Aggressively, but I like to do it in stages over time. Since for me, it sounds less harsh, and it sounds
it's like a less forced volume thing, because you're doing the subtle things. Yeah, that's awesome. I have not heard about what's it called, serial clipping. I'll have to try it.
It's fun.
I don't do a ton of clipping for the kind of genres I work on, but I probably should experiment more with clipping.
Yeah, there's a great plugin for it. Also by Joey Sturgis Tones, called the JST Clip, and it's like it's like $40, and it's great. And you just put like a couple, like I think it goes up to, I can't remember the number it goes up to. If you just put it on like 2 or 3, it doesn't have to be crazy amount, but that subtle amount of clipping over time, it just really, it brings the perceived volume up in a very pleasing way. And I find like it's louder, but you're not eating up as much RMS. So it's really fun. And I like to do that with saturation too. So
serial saturation. Do you mix into, do you have a saturator on your stereo bus / mastering chain?
Do I don't believe I do. I like to take care of that stuff within the mix. I find that I like to keep the mix and master chain somewhat clean from any like too much. Actually, well, sometimes I'll use the tape machine, the Slate the Slate tape machine for a little bit of that juice, that mojo it adds. And I guess that is a bit of saturation, but it's not nearly as much as something like a decapitator. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're hip to it, but the Plugin Alliance has this black box. I think it's the HG2.
Yes. I love that one.
I'm mixing into it, and I tried to like, I don't know, after Josh's episode where he tells me he works from the ground up. I don't know that I almost 99% of the time mixing into the HG2 is just adds that extra element of depth, and it just only adds good things to all the whole frequency spectrum.
Yeah. I love that one. I just got that like a few months ago, and I've been experimenting with it. I did try it on the mix bus, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for me to shift into using that. I do like it a lot on like drum bus, and I think I used it a little bit on like extra percussion stuff. But it's not subtle. It's like super aggressive, but in a pleasing way. So
in a very pleasing way. Yeah. I mean, I blend it in. It's usually at like 30% or something even mixed, but it adds that like almost like an analog kind of dimension.
Yeah, it sounds really nice.
Yeah, it's I know it's interesting we talk about the clipping, because I noticed like that mix was very punchy, even though it's very loud and aggressive. Like it still felt quite punchy, like the drums.
Thank you.
So That's not easy to achieve. I feel like with given everything going into it.
And like sometimes, like I said, when the tracks come in great and it's a great arrangement, and sometimes it gets there without a lot of effort. Like it's just there because everything all the steps were done, right from the get go. But like sometimes it is a struggle to get it loud and still retain all of the depth in the drums and the punchiness and the dimension. So that's basically one of the hardest things with metal is just keeping it massive and allowing everything to have its place without things folding in on themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I did like a heavy rock mix. It was hard to kind of get everything to kind of like feel right. And I probably should be sending these things off to you maybe, but but I actually used what was like the Slate version of the OTT at the very end, and it just like fucking brought everything like that. Like it was like that missing element, kind of like we talked about like the Devil Lock or whatever. And I was shocked at like how it kind of just brought out the guitars in like a really nice way, and kind of kept everything feeling like, I don't know, a little bit punchier, which was interesting.
Yeah,
so I
haven't messed with that one yet. I do have that I have the Everything bundle, so I have it, but I haven't really dove into that plugin yet. But it looks pretty sick. Like I threw it on once, but I was just like, there's a lot going on, so I haven't really had a chance to learn it.
It's very intuitive. It's actually very intuitive. You kind of just like, I just mess with like the sliders until things start to feel right, and then also blending it into taste. Like sometimes like 5% is all you need.
Okay, cool.
That my experience, but like different people do use OTT and MOTT different ways. But anyway, that's just been my limited experience with it. But that was fun because it did bring out like that. It's hard, man. The metal, the hard rock thing. Not an easy genre to mix. So kudos on this track. It sounds great.
Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was your monitoring. What's your monitoring situation looking like? How are you, like, for mixing?
Yeah, I've been using the Lynx Aurora conversion for a while. It sounded great since I purchased it. I've had it almost 10 years now, but I use that for A, D, D to A. So I'm coming out of there into my, I use the Dangerous monitoring, the Dangerous source, and that goes out to, I'm using for mixing, for the longest time I was using NS10s, but I just got tired of them and I wanted to try something else. So now I'm using the higher end KRKs, the V6s. And I don't know, like a lot of people talk shit on KRK, but there's something about them, like they translate so well, and especially in my room, they just work so well in my room, and they do have a lot of bass for the size of the speaker. And when I need to, I'll switch to my other set of monitors for like the super sub low end stuff when I need to hear that, and which are I use the Kali LP8s for that. And if I need to like really blast something loud in the studio for a client, if they want to hear something really loud, I'll switch to those. But I'm monitoring at pretty low levels on the KRK V6s, and it's been working great. Yeah.
Amazing. It's all about what you trust and what works for you, and like if it translates, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And speaking of translating, like for monitoring, I for the longest time was like, because people were telling me to try the SonarWorks. Yeah. A lot of people, like a few of my friends and engineers are like, you should definitely try this. And I just never ended up doing it because like my room is tuned really well and I have my trap set up to the point where like whatever I get like sounding good in here, like if I go to my car, it's pretty much there. Like obviously when you have to switch to a smartphone or a laptop, like things aren't going to sound exactly the same, obviously, but I just find like things are translating really well. So I haven't really found the need to go into the sound correction software,
Yeah. People either swear by it or don't.
And I also have like colleagues of mine that they started using it for a little bit and they said it was great. And then like they stopped using it for whatever reason. So I don't know. I think as long as you have like your room is good and you trust you trust your ears and you've been working in the space for a while and you know what to expect from your speakers. You know how it will translate into the car, into